Hey everybody, welcome to Humpday Horror Stories, where I discuss how terrible I am at my job. So today I kind of wanted to start off, obviously, talking about my own story before bringing in friends who are also in the industry and can tell you about their horror stories. I thought it only fair that I start with one of my major faux pas, if you will. Now, I spent most of my teenage years wanting to be a TV writer. At 19, a friend of mine who was in the industry came up to me and said, "Hey, if you want to be a TV writer so bad," because I hadn't gone to school or anything like that, he was like, "Get in the industry, work your way up, network, get to know people." And I thought, okay, that sounds cool. However, I had never done any kind of PA work in my life. For those of you who don't know, a PA is a production assistant. So I'm in charge of doing all kinds of stuff, or a PA, a real one, would be in charge of doing all sorts of stuff behind the scenes, setting up the snack table, going out running to get snacks and taking orders. All basically anything that the higher ups don't want to do is your job to do. They had PAs doing the little things, the things they didn't have time to worry about because they were too busy making TV. So yeah, I had no idea how to do that. Basically, he explained it that way to me. Hey, you're just an errand boy. You run around, you do what they tell you to do, and you're done. So, okay, that sounds fine. And then he says to me, if for any reason someone asks you to do something that you don't know how to do, say yes anyway. And then go find out from someone else how to do it. You don't want to let them know that you're not supposed to be here, basically. And so I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds easy enough. I can do that. I can always just call you, right? And he's like, yeah, for sure. Give me a call. Let me know where you're at, what you need, and I'll do my best to help you. Now, this job was for CBS The Amazing Race, and we lived in Miami, and they were shooting down in the Keys in Key West. So we drove down from Miami into Key West, which is about a 3 hour drive or so, and we check in. Now, when we check in, one of the first things they do is they put us all in this big, like, auditorium looking area, and we're all just sitting there, and they're checking us all in, calling off our names like we're in high school, and we're here, whatever. After we all get checked in, they have us line up and they go down, they have us come up and they say, okay, we have you doing this today. Okay, we have you doing this today. And so when I got there, they had me doing, I think they had me running to get stuff for craft services, stuff for the craft table, for food basically. They had me going to get food. So while I'm in the midst of getting myself ready to go get this run, I'm going to get petty cash. I'm talking to people, asking them what they want me to grab, if anything specific. I'm making my list, doing all that stuff, double checking it twice. I can do this, right? I'm like, hey, it's not that hard. I'm going to get groceries, basically. So as I'm doing this, though, one of the lead PAs comes up to me. He asks me. He says, hey, the guy that was supposed to be helping our main cameraman, he's not feeling well. Is there any way, do you know anything about cameras? Can you fill in? Remembering what my friend said, even though I have no idea camera work, nah. So I say yes. Yeah, I could do that. That's fine. He directs me where to go. I go over to the guy, and the first thing the camera guy says to me is, hey, can you grab me this such and such lens? And he points to his bag, and I'm like, sure, I can grab that for you. And I reach down to get it. There's like 20 lenses in this bag. So now I'm like, oh, I have no idea what to do. And I go to reach for one, and as I reach for it, he's just like, nope. Hey, why don't you go help someone else?
Help someone else.
Okay, bad start, but I kind of laugh it off, shrug it off, and I leave, and I go back to the big auditorium room where I wait for another task. Finally, they call me up again, and they asked me if, because I'm from Miami and I drove down from Miami, they asked me if I'd be okay with driving an executive producer from location to location so that they could oversee the B-roll shots. And I'm sure you guys know what B-roll is. It's just the establishing shots. So I say, yes, I can do that. I couldn't because I did not drive at this time. I drove down with my friend. I had a license, but I was no driver. They give me the keys and they tell me that we should be good to go by 6. I call my buddy up and I ask him, I say, hey man, like they want me to do this. They want me to drive this guy around from location to location. There's like 4 of them. And I told them I knew the route, but I don't know the route. What should I do? And he tells me, okay, so why don't you go to one of the lead PAs and ask them, is it okay for you to run the route since you have some time? Because it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So since you have some time, why don't you just see if you can run the route real quick and tell them it's that because you want to maximize and you want to know exactly where you're going so you don't get lost. Easy. I go over to one of the leads and I tell them, hey, can I run the route? You know, I just want to make sure that I do it properly. I want to make sure that we get there from A to B to C to D as quickly and efficiently as possible. He says, yeah, it's a great idea. Go ahead and do that. I hop in the car, jamming out to music, got my iPod Touch plugged in, and I drive from our location up to the Fontainebleau, which is a hotel in Miami. As soon as I get to the Fontainebleau, I get a call. I answer it, and it's the PA, and he is livid. He is mad. Like, he's yelling and screaming at me about where the f are you and why would you leave and all this stuff. And I'm like, hey man, I spoke to so-and-so and they told me that it was okay for me to run the route to make sure it was efficient before 6, before I had to come pick the guy up. And he says to me, 6 o'clock is when we're gonna be done. We need you here at 3 o'clock. And I'm looking at my thing and I'm at my watch and I'm like, oh, it's 3:15. So where are you? And I'm like, I'm in Miami at the Fontainebleau. He's like, no, you were supposed to run the route, the 3 to 4 things here locally to make sure you knew how to get back and forth, not all the way to Miami to the hotel where we're going to be taking him at the end of the evening at 6 o'clock. I call my buddy again and I tell him exactly what's going on. He says to me, look, man, just get back here as quickly as you can. And I'm like, how? Like, what do you mean? It takes 3 hours. We know it takes 3 hours to get from Miami to Key West because we just drove it. And I'm not that great of a driver. And he says, dude, speed, take the tickets, get on the turnpike. Just don't go to jail. Don't kill anybody, but be here now. And so that freaks me out. Obviously, that freaks me way out. So I do what he says. Pedal to the metal, man. And I just fly like 90 something the whole way. It was really unsafe, if I'm being honest. I was a stupid 19-year-old. Got on the Florida Turnpike, which is a toll road. I blew through every toll. I didn't stop for a single one. I got there in the record 2 hours time. And when I showed up, the lead PA and then the other guy, the other boss, I forget what his role was. They were standing there waiting for me. The worst, I'll never forget this part, is the boss, the older guy, the one who was overseeing the entire PA staff. He had a calculator in his hand. I go to say I'm sorry, and he's like, shut up. And he starts laying into me about every minute I was gone. The executive producer couldn't get to the site that he was supposed to be at, and they had to wait on him, and blah, blah, blah. And basically, he just, every minute, he just started ticking off numbers. This cost $1,000, and that costed this. I think by the end of his rant at me, he told me that I had cost the production $150,000 in delays. Yeah, and so the best part was that he couldn't really yell at me as much as he wanted to because the executive producer was waiting. So I had to then hustle, go grab him, and even though the day was kind of ruined, I did get him back to the Fontainebleau fast. And when we got there, the production crew did not. They hadn't booked me a room, so the executive had to book the room for me. But you could see it on his face. He wasn't happy about that. He booked me the junior executive suite, and told me to have a nice night and please be on time for the next morning because we were waking up at 4 a.m. to to do all the things we were supposed to do that afternoon. That's the story of how I caused the production of CBS's The Amazing Race, if my boss is to be believed, $150,000. So the next time you think you had a bad day at work, you just remember that. At least you didn't cost your company $150,000 in a span of 3 hours.
The show that I got hired on was The Amazing Race. it was a no-brainer to see if I could get you on to come. Now, you've never, ever done anything on a show or anything like that, but it's an assistant position, so it's not like you needed to be an expert in anything specific. But when they brought you on, they asked you for very specific things that, based on my advice, you took, because I remember saying, no matter what they ask you, just say yeah. But they asked you stuff that you had no clue. It wasn't even just like, hey, you go to, the store and get water. It was way more complicated than that. I know they asked you to work with the camera person, and that didn't work out. I know that they told you to drive, and I remember if your phone wasn't working correctly, and uh, yeah, you couldn't get directions or something, and you got lost. And I remember I think I tried to like pretend that I didn't know you, so I wasn't an extra person to call you or something. Like, it was just such a fucking mess, that show. But it was also